the Team Performance Podcast with Spencer Horn and Christian Napier. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Team Performance Winning Ways for Uncertain Times podcast. I'm Christian Napier, joined by the man framed beautifully in purple behind you with a wonderful combination of holy writ and secular novels and books and tomes behind you, Spencer Horn. Spencer, how you doing?
Good, Christian. Good to be with you. Yeah, I like holy tomes and secular writ. Oh, I got those backwards.
I don't know. I'm using words I don't even know what they mean, just to try to sound smart. But clearly the facade has crumbled in the first 30 seconds of our podcast. But what are you up to, Spencer? How's it going?
I've just been overcome by the exuberance of your own verbosity, your loquaciousness. I'm doing fairly well. I usually come on and I'm always excited to come on with you. It's truly a pleasure to be with you. This is actually the second time this week you and I have been together. We'll talk about that, but I have been doing a lot of training and coaching all week. And the other night, for whatever reason, I think it was Wednesday morning, about 3:30 in the morning, I woke up and I couldn't go back to sleep. And that's very rare for me. My mind was going. So I ended up just getting out of bed at 4:45 and gosh, this has been a repeating thing for me. When did I give a keynote in Turkey? So I think we talked about that, right? Do you remember when I did that? COVID is just driving me nuts. I can't even think of when I did what.
I don't know. It's all a blur, Spencer. You're a very busy man.
So I just gave this presentation in Turkey, and it was on my calendar at 6 a.m. in the morning. And what ended up happening was I got up early at 5:30 because I'm like, all right, I'm just going to get ready and get relaxed. And I started getting messages on WhatsApp in Turkey, and it was starting at 5 a.m. So I got up at 4:30. That's what I got up at 4:30. And luckily I had gotten up, and I'm just looking for the date. I had like 5 minutes to prepare. And when you speak and you're ready to speak, it doesn't matter. I just went right into it. And they had 500 people from all over Europe. And it turned out okay. I would have been the first time I've ever missed a speaking engagement. So I guess what I'm saying is that the last week or so has been a little challenging for me. That's unusual for me.
Okay.
How have you been?
I've been good, but I got to ask a question before we get to me. There are certain things in life that are mortal fears for me, and I dream about them. And missing flights, forgetting my passport. I always have dreams I'm in the airport and I don't have my passport with me, or I've left my laptop or something stupid like that. Do you ever had dreams where you have fallen asleep and you have missed one of these big trainings or, things that you were supposed to do, or it's like, oh, it was supposed to be this day and it was that day and you got the days mixed up? You've never had any dreams like that?
No, but I did on that day. So it was the 12th of February. It's Thursday, the day after Veterans Day. And it's on my calendar at 6 a.m. And I double checked. I checked the time zones and everything over there. They wanted me to come on at such and such a time in the afternoon. And it was an hour earlier. So I don't know why, whatever happened, but a sixth sense, maybe that was it, woke me up. And I was just like 4:30, I'm just relaxing. Boom, messages. And I'm like, hey, it's like in an hour and a half. No, you come on now. So I just threw everything on. Didn't even comb my hair.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have any hair to comb.
All right. Now I have to, I wonder if there's a connection, because you remember you did this wonderful half-day course, 5 hours of really intensive sales training, which you kindly invited me to participate. And my invitation said that the thing was supposed to start at 11. and you texted me shortly after 10 and said, "Hey, you joining the thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be there." And then
I have
20 minutes
no
later,
idea because everybody else came on.
yeah. So I'm like, I don't know, something weird's going on with the time zones here. I don't know, because I'm looking at my invite.
That could very well be, but I have no idea because everybody else was there but you. And so maybe it's something with.
Yeah, maybe we have a problem. We're like daylight savings time just didn't apply to us, and we're just.
I have no idea. Yeah, so that doesn't happen very often, and so I just feel, I felt a little off my game, and and I coach. I like to have some energy, but when people ask you how you are, I want to be real and not just say, "Oh, I'm awesome," because then they're like they don't believe you anymore. And no, I'm tired. Well, but this morning, I'll keep going. I will talk about this morning.
I'm just offering you well wishes for a weekend. I hope you can get some semblance of rest over the weekend and recharge your batteries, because I know you've really cranked it hard getting everything done this week. You had a million things going on, and I appreciate you taking time trying to find a little slice of time in your schedule here to do our crazy little podcast.
Oh, I feel the same about you, man. You have been working your tail off with the International Olympic Committee. You got great things going on. You're busy as heck. And then you do ladies and gentlemen, he does all this technology, puts it up on the website, puts scripts, timestamps, everything. And it's just amazing. People around the world, they just love it. And I have a Hall of Fame speaker that's going to come and join us, and in large part because of the great work that you do, making this so professional. So I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that too. When is this guy coming on, or girl?
Well, yeah, girl, Marilyn Sherman. We have to come up with some dates, and she wasn't able today because she was just coming home from speaking. She's in high demand. Virtual meetings, in-person meetings, and she is a fabulous speaker. I met her when I was just joined the National Speakers Association in Las Vegas, and but that was 5 years ago, and I was so impressed with her then, and she's just risen the charts of fame in the speaking industry. So,
well, hopefully we can get her on after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, absolutely. That we'll get a couple dates and get her to show up. Well, what's on the docket today?
Well, I just mentioned Thanksgiving, right? It's that time of year when we feel particularly grateful. So I thought we could do a podcast where we just talk about the concept of gratitude, and we can just see how it goes. We can share the things that we're grateful for, how gratitude has impacted our lives, how gratitude can impact your career, although you don't necessarily, you want to do it genuinely. You don't want to just do it to make money, right? But I think this is the time of year when I think gratitude's an appropriate topic to address.
Well, certainly for us in the United States, we are celebrating Thanksgiving, the time when the pilgrims who came to this country, they were struggling to eat and feed themselves, and the Native Americans that were here really saved them, taught them how to plant in the soil and how to harvest. And when they had that harvest, they had a very important meal that they shared together. And so for us in the United States, this is a time that's been set aside to really remember the blessings that we all have. And I know Canada does theirs in October, and other countries may have different times where they focus on gratitude. But I think it's such an important practice, just the idea, all the time, not just during a holiday, but I think we get to, we've just gone through and are actually going through a very divisive and stressful time in this country. And what's interesting is gratitude is almost a healing balm that can renew us and reinvigorate our souls and our minds during this time. It's an incredible blessing just to practice gratitude. And so I think the timing of our election along with this holiday is very fortuitous.
Yeah, it is. You mentioned the healing power of it, and you and I just watched a talk, not really a talk. It was a video, right? It was a short video.
Yeah, a short presentation.
10, 12 minutes long, something like that, from the head of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who was talking about the healing power of gratitude. And that was certainly impactful. And I'm curious, as you look in your life, have you noticed any experiences where gratitude has brought comfort, peace, healing, even in a difficult time?
Yes, absolutely. And, I talk about it in my trainings. And I did, after the training you and I did on Tuesday, that was that 5-hour training, I did 2 3-hour workshops for, one was a CEO group, another one was a senior executive group. Both of them were in the LA area. And the topic is one that I do a lot on the neuroscience of effective leadership. And one of the whole ideas of this topic is to match our intentions with our impact, and how creating this positive environment at work increases engagement and productivity. And I give all kinds of examples, scientific data. But when we're under stress, I have them take my behavioral assessment, because it measures a lot of stress that people are under right now. And it's so timely for many people, because here's what I'm hearing on these conversations. And so this is a long way to answer your question. I got on these calls and everybody checks in before I have the chance to speak, and the host introduces me. I get to hear from all of the participants, and these are smaller groups, right? But people were saying, I'm so disappointed. My Thanksgiving plans have been canceled. I was supposed to go to Arizona to my sister's house, and I just can't, because the governor of California says we can't do this. And so now, do I just disregard that, or do I live with the wrath of my sister? And so personally, I'm just frustrated. Another person says, I have just lost all motivation. I mean, if people aren't coming over, why even put forward the effort? I mean, so many people are dealing with that. And here in Utah, up until just yesterday, when the governor amended his order, we weren't going to be able to get together. And as a matter of fact, part of my family is not coming to our Thanksgiving celebration because of COVID. And I think, we have been dealing with this for so long, and there's been so much stress and so much anxiety, racial tensions and political rancor and dispute, and it's still going on in lawsuits. And for people who are outside, watching that process, this has happened before, but you've got to go through that process. But for a lot of people, that's unsettling. So right now, there's just a lot of anxiety and stress and pressure. People are sick. I don't know what it is, but I feel like, Christian, personally, I'm praying for more individuals than I ever have, because sick and dying. I just talked to a friend last night who, when I was talking about COVID, he was saying, his aunt was one of those first in the New York City area that went to the hospital. It was kind of before they had really started showing compassion and understanding. Nobody could come see her. And she was in the hospital for like 2 months, died of loneliness, and so we're talking about this. And this is what people and families are dealing with since March, and it's just not letting up. And so in this presentation, I talk about the need to manage stress, because under stress and under pressure, Christian, we have heightened emotions, and we are making poorer decisions. We are fighting with others more. We're not making that positive environment that's needed for higher engagement and higher productivity. And so one of the strategies, and I give like 9 strategies to help regain control of your thinking brain, right? And not allowing the emotions to take over and causing you to create a negative environment. There's a saying by the Roman Epicurus. He says, skillful pilots are made in storms and tempests, not when things are smooth. You and I have been studying in the Holy Writ about an ancient people that, went through storms to get to the promised land. It's a great metaphor for our lives, right? We go through storms, and that can either make us stronger if we allow us those storms, those tempests, those challenges, or some people it causes us to lose our perspective and become angry and emotional. But one of the skills, and not just for life, but in business, that can help you to overcome that stress and tension and frustration is gratitude. Now, I know that was a roundabout way, but of answering your question, but here's the rest of the story. When I was 18 years old, my mother, Noelle Horn, beautiful woman, opera singer. Both my parents sang opera. My father was from Germany. He met my mother at the University of Alberta, and they were singing in the opera together in college, and he bent over and split his tights, and I guess he caught her attention somehow. And anyway, long story short, they got married. And but she was just this beautiful person, and marriage didn't last. And she was raising a family of four, and as a teacher and struggling in life. And I remember when I was 18, she gathered my two sisters and my brother together, and she'd just gotten back from the doctor. And she said, "I have 6 months to live." Now, she was in her late 40s, but 10 years earlier, she had had breast cancer and had a mastectomy, and for some unknown reason, that had come back in the form of bone cancer, which is a very deadly form of cancer, and it had metastasized. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Throughout her entire body, and the prognosis was poor. But she was a school teacher, and she says, "You know what? We're going to continue to live our lives. Spencer, you're getting ready to go on a mission. You're going to go on a mission." And that's, at that time, it was during the recession. It was 1983. This was my senior year in high school. And that was during a recessionary period in the world, or in the United States. And so they had shortened the 2-year mission to 18 months because of the expense that it was so expensive. But, and she's like, "And I'm going to keep teaching. I love teaching. I'm going to do it as long as I can physically do it." And I remember that she would come home from school and she'd just sit on the couch, Christian, and put her feet up, put a blanket over it. And she was in such pain. She would just sit there and not move. And she would correct all her papers. At school, she would sit on a stool and she couldn't move all day just because of the pain. At my farewell, my missionary farewell, we had a traditional party, and people came over and well wished me, and somebody gave my mom a hug and broke 3 of her ribs just from the hug. That's how fragile she was. And I remember leaving, and I got called to Rome, Italy, and she was so excited. I'm going to go to Rome, where she loved the romantic languages. She sang in French and Italian. She studied in Italy music. She studied in Siena, and she was so excited for me to go there. And I remember going to the missionary training center and saying goodbye to her. And I just was bawling because I didn't know if I'd ever see her again. And here I am, this kid from Utah with my religious beliefs and faith from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I went to the wonderful people of Rome, Italy, and the regions round about, who have, a great religious history of their own. And it was tough. And I remember writing my mom, and I would just complain. It was hard, and she's going through all this at home. She never once, Christian, ever complained about anything. All she did was write letters to me to build me up and encourage me. And I was getting towards the end of my mission. She lived longer. She did all this stuff that she could to live longer. At the time, the Food and Drug Administration in this country didn't approve certain treatments. So it was, I mean, if she would have had this today, she probably would have lived. But back then, she decided to go to Mexico for this special vitamin treatment. And she ended up living longer. But I remember coming to the end of, I had 3 months left of my 18-month service. And I called my dad, and we had an option that we could stay for 2 years. And so I was like optimistic. My mom was doing well. And I called Dad and I said, Dad, I'd really like to stay. You know, I've only got 3 months. And he says, well, the doctors feel like it's 3 months is the limit of how she's, you know, it's now 2 years later, right? Three more months will be 2 years from that original meeting that she had with us. And I said, okay, I'll be home. Within a few weeks, I got a call from my church leadership and said, we need you to come home. Because my parents were divorced, I was my mother's executor. And I came home, I flew home on a Thursday. And she was so sick, Christian. She, you know, I came in, she thought I was an angel or something, and she was dying. And she lived another 6 months after that. And it gave us such precious time together because I was able to get all the arrangements done. I was able to spend time with her. I was able to pick out where we would come visit her in the cemetery. And we were able to talk about my experience in Italy. And I cannot think of that memory. I took a long time to explain it. I can't think of that experience and be upset. It's a powerful emotion that comes of gratitude for the time that I had with my mom, her example of how she behaved under these terrible, she didn't choose the cancer. It happened, but she chose how she responded with such grace and dignity. That gratitude is just so strong. And it defeats any negative emotion instantly. And it's a technique that if you are feeling sorry for yourself or frustrated or angry, if you can think of something in your life that you are so grateful for, it has to be a strong emotion. It has to be a real emotion. It will defeat any negative emotion. And that's to answer your question. I'm sorry, that's about 20 minutes longer than you probably expected, but.
Well, it's a beautiful memory, Spencer, and incredibly powerful, very personal. And I appreciate you sharing it with such vulnerability and authenticity. I just feel like we should just stop. I mean, and reflect on that. But I think you've said some things that are really, really important that you learned from your own personal experience. And that is the power of a positive memory.
Yeah.
And I hope that the people who are listening in their life experience can find one thing like that, that can.
It doesn't have to be that, tragic experience.
No,
I mean, it can extra be an time.
Anchor, right? It can be an anchor to keep you from drowning or falling off the cliff or whatever metaphor you want to use, something to just snap you back into the proper perspective. I find that most often I'm feeling I'm in a difficult place because I lose sight of the bigger picture, and the memories a memory like yours, which you just shared, it puts things into perspective, right? It's like, oh, that kind of brings me back to focus on the things that are important. We did that little exercise the other day where we watched that little National Geographic video, which was all about focus and then missing everything that's going on around you because your brain can just focus on certain things. And
exactly.
And when we're caught up in all of the anxieties and the stresses of our present situation, it's easy to lose sight of the things that really matter most. And I think your advice is perfect. If you can have at the ready this really impactful memory, it can just put
and that's the key is you actually have to practice it for it to be for it to work. You have to be able to recall it in this stressful time. And I'm looking at something because you just brought up such a great point. I like to study scripture. You see them behind me here. And one of the things I do is use my phone to study. And then I make tags for things that are important to me. And one of the tags is remember. And I have so far 24 times where I read where we're actually commanded to remember. And I believe it's part of that because when we remember, we think of all the good things that have happened to us that, I believe that these good things come from God. And here we are talking to people in, businesses, but just the idea, this concept of gratitude, we would teach to special forces whose lives depended on them to being able to think clearly. And it's such a powerful thing that it can overcome and conquer fear. But, when you think of all the things all the blessings that you have, I stop feeling sorry for myself. And I switch from that frustration or thoughts of lack into, man, I am so blessed, and I need to be almost worthy of those great blessings, and so I need to get to work. And that actually causes us to take action, and it motivates us to move. And what's interesting is motive is a reason, right? And then action is to move. And so to me, gratitude gives me that motivation to get off my butt and stop feeling sorry for myself.
Well, that's a good way to put it. In this crazy time, you mentioned the experience while we were talking earlier on the call with someone that you knew who had an aunt or something who had been hospitalized for COVID.
Yeah.
Stuck in the hospital for 2 months, not able to see anybody else. And and there's a not insignificant portion of the population who are isolated because of their risk factors, or because they are already sick. And down the street from us, I don't know, maybe a mile down the road, there is an assisted living facility that we have opportunity to go and help people in this facility on occasion when we're called. And we haven't been able to do that lately because of the pandemic. So that is pretty much stopped. But if you go and see these people, you know that they're near the end. They are usually in small rooms. Most of the people in these rooms have pictures. They are pictures of family members or cherished friends, lifelong friends. When it's all over, that's really what matters, are the relationships. We've talked on this podcast when it comes back to business, how important relationships are.
Yeah.
And I find these relationships to be a tremendous source of gratitude for me.
Yeah.
It's a relationship with you. You're a great, a dear friend. It's a relationship with, my wife or my children, family members, associates that I've worked with on the games. I do this other podcast, Salt Lake 2002. When you ask people about the legacy of the games for them, almost every response is the relationships. It's all about the people.
Yeah.
To be successful and happy in business and in a personal life, I think it's important to be very grateful for the relationships that we have. And not everybody has relationships. Sometimes it's difficult. You're in challenging family environments. The work environment could be toxic. But if there is one relationship that you've had in your life that had some kind of positive impact on you, maybe that's one to hold on to and think about at this time of year when you're trying to get out of the funk that we're in and rise above it.
You're so right, Christian. I couldn't just very well said. I just had another conversation today with a senior HR director from a major franchise that is bringing me in to do some training for them. And, we were originally going to do a communication workshop and then emotional intelligence, but they've had so much of that. The challenge that they have is that the senior leadership from the parent company will go into the franchise restaurants, right? And they're very transactional. They're just to check the box, and they do not connect. There's no empathy. And as a result, the just how they feel about the parent company or the people that come to them is not as positive as it could be. And it's hard, they just come and say, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's just completely transactional. And so there's no relationship, there's no connection. We talked on Tuesday, a big part of everything we almost the entire time we spent on how to develop relationships with people. If you really break it down to that, that's what we talked about. Because who do people buy from? Who they know and trust based on relationships. And you can create those relationships fairly quickly. And it's so funny because when I set up this appointment with this executive, the first thing we talked about was, how is your family doing? What are your plans? And then I had all these questions I wanted to have, but my natural proclivity, my style, my natural tendency is let's just get this done. I mean, because I got all these questions I need to ask you, but that's so much less effective. And I've actually had to practice this. And when you think about it, you're right. The things that I'm so grateful for in business are the friendships that I have with my clients. It's the relationships. I'm grateful for that. It gives me comfort. It gives me confidence too, because if they have a problem or a question, they call me. And I'm grateful for that. And I feel like, there's so many benefits of gratitude. It improves mental health. There's tons of research on that. It improves physical health, right? I mean, it causes us to sleep better. It improves our self-esteem. It reduces stress and anxiety, as I just described, and how this training can help overcome, emotional hijacks. It creates more balance in our lives. It increases productivity. I mean, what's not to love about it? So my question is why do you think there's a problem with gratitude in this country? And if so, why?
I don't know the answer to the question. I'm not an expert on the demographics. I do know that in our particular nation, the United States of America, we're not so united at the moment. So there's a lot of division. That being said, I do think that if you sat down with people and you just asked them to take an inventory of their lives, everybody would find things that they were grateful for. And I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed this, I don't read the comments too much on news articles, because if I read them too much, I stress out. They give me anxiety. So I've learned to kind of stay away from those things. But it's interesting to see what happens on the COVID articles when someone puts in a comment. I'm really grateful for the healthcare workers. Thank you for taking care of us. I know you're working hard and you're exhausted, but I appreciate all that you do. And then you'll see a string of comments that follow right after it, basically echoing that same sentiment.
Isn't that interesting?
It is quite interesting. Someone should, somebody ought to do a study on that, I guess.
First of all, our attitudes. To say your attitude is catching is not just it is a scientific fact. It's not just a pleasant meme or idea. It is literally a fact that we influence how other people are thinking by how we think. And so just by sharing with the world that you're grateful for something, I mean, one of my favorite commercials I play in one of my keynotes is this old Coke commercial. I think it's set in India, right? And it's just this one guy gets dirt on his hands, and this little girl that's selling balloons comes up and pours some water on his hands and walks away. And that just sets in motion all of these, kind actions that somebody does and then somebody else does. And at the end, it's so cute because it all comes back to this little gal who's kind of sitting dejected on the beach. And it's a Coca-Cola commercial. So the person gives her a Coke and makes her feel better. But it's so true. I mean, that's karma, if you want to call it. But it is, we send out into the world just by a simple gratitude statement. And I think we can have such an impact on the world just by focusing on things that we're grateful for.
Well, it's standard business practice, right? When you're following up with customers or clients to thank them for, letting you sell them something or provide a service to them for something. In that cycle, there's always a follow-up area after something's closed. And so we are conditioned to do that from a sales perspective. I wonder sometimes how well conditioned we are to do that from an employee perspective or a teammate perspective, to help strengthen relationships simply by expressing gratitude to people for the work that they did. Sometimes
that's a good question.
Managers, we can take it for granted, the work that our staff do or our company does. And, maybe we could benefit from expressing our gratitude for the work that our people do on a more regular basis.
And if you do, Christian, I don't know if you remember, I talked about what's called the reciprocity bias on Tuesday. If you do, you will plug into a cognitive bias that we all have. And that is that when you give someone, you express gratitude, they that's giving someone a gift, just a compliment or expressing gratitude is a gift of some sort. It, first of all, lights up their brain and gives them dopamine, but doing something for somebody and expressing that gratitude causes them to want to reciprocate. It just the brain wants to do it. And that's one of the reasons why you give back to someone else. It just starts a chain reaction. So if it's not a habit, it gets to be, it should be. I mean, we need to make it one.
Well, I think we should. So it's been a fascinating conversation on gratitude at this time of year when we are all feeling grateful, even though, as you mentioned, with your CEO group and executives, this is an unusual Thanksgiving celebration, and it is putting us at a disadvantage when we want to have the traditional meal with our family and or our extended family as well, and we're not able to do that. It's difficult, but I still think that we have a multitude of things to be grateful for.
You're so right.
As usual. Spencer. Well, I'm grateful for you sharing this hour with me. I really appreciate it. If people want to learn more about the really awesome stuff that you do and how you can help them, what's the best way for them to reach out and contact you?
So email me, Spencer at Altium Leadership. That's ALTIUM leadership.com. Or you can go on our website, altiumleadership.com, and message me. And Christian, I want to say something about you. One of the things you talked about going to these senior centers and remembering all the relationships by the pictures they have. One of the things that you excel at is helping people remember those connections that they've had in the past. You've actually created a whole system around that to capture those memories and those stories. And if someone wants to learn more about that, because we want to remember the great relationships in our lives because it brings us great joy. It doesn't make all the sadness go away, but it sure helps to get through that. If someone wanted to learn about that or all the other great work that you do, how can they find out?
Well, I appreciate you mentioning that, Spencer, particularly this time of year when we're all waxing nostalgic.
Yeah.
It's nice to kind of take a look back on those beautiful life experiences. And so we have created a website called lifestoriesrevered.com. And we can help people document these memories in a very efficient way, and also share them in a very elegant, tasteful way. So I would love to help anybody who is interested in documenting the life stories of a loved one, a friend, a parent, a grandparent. So thank you very much for mentioning that. If people want to learn more about that, they can go to lifestoriesrevered.com, or you can also email me at cnapier@gp4.com. That's gpfour.com. You can also go to the gp4.com website, or you can look me up on LinkedIn, Christian Napier on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to hear from anybody. So Spencer, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a great hour. And I look forward to catching all of our listeners who are liking and subscribing. We appreciate you very much, listeners, for participating in our journey together.
Thank you. Thank you all,
listeners. And we'll catch you again soon.